With us today is Rod Yates, the developer and owner of Nebraska Crossing, and along with Rod, Johanna Boston, the jack of all trades, do a little bit of everything at Nebraska Crossing, and sister company Just Data. Rod and Johanna, welcome back to the show.
Good morning, you guys. Thanks for having us.
Always great being here, Trenton and Jeff. Thank you very much.
So you guys had a busy travel schedule this week. Yesterday, you were in Midtown Manhattan meeting with the commissioner of the National Hockey League and his top executives. There's been a lot of talk in the media. Rod, you testified recently in the legislature that Nebraska, specifically the Nebraska Crossing Good Life District, could be in the running for a National Hockey League franchise. So first of all, let's talk lead us up to the meeting yesterday in New York, and the answer the question that everyone wants to know. How did it go?
Yeah, it was a phenomenal day. It's like one of those days in your life you'll never forget. And we had a great team get together and travel to New York. Governor Pillen went with us. The director of the DED, Casey Billetz, joined us. And then we took our secret weapon, Dr. Ernie Goss from Creighton University, with us as well. And so we had a great meeting. It's like I said, we're in Midtown Manhattan at the NHL headquarters, overlooking the skyline, and we met the executive team, Commissioner Gary Bettman and his team, and I'll tell you, it couldn't have gone any better.
Okay, so you get to the meeting, and the commissioner says, "What do you got?" And Omaha, if
first you had to get the meeting. How did you get a meeting with the NHL?
That's a fair question. Yeah, start with that.
We cold called them.
Hey, imagine that in business. You heard that, ladies and gentlemen. All you salespeople out there, you got to pick up the phone every once in a while.
Well, yeah, we as a business, we cold call people. You know, we're the 42nd most populated state. And if we're going to get new industry, new business, new retail to our market, we do a lot of cold calling. But what we did, we took a little bit different approach. There's about 6 or 7 cities across the country that want an NHL expansion team. And so instead of just making the request, our thought is that we partnered up with Dr. Goss and we created an economic impact study that showed the NHL they should be in Nebraska. And so that was the key of our meeting, is going through that study, that economic impact study that Dr. Goss put together. And it was really interesting. About 3 Fridays ago, like every other guy in America, I come home from work on Friday night, I sat down on my couch and I turned ESPN on. And it was NHL All-Star Weekend, and Gary Bettman, the commissioner, was on being interviewed by a handful of ESPN reporters. And he starts talking about expansion. He says, well, I got this really interesting email from this group of people in Nebraska, and started talking a little bit about that. So that was the genesis of the meeting. To answer your question, Trenton, is we worked with Dr. Goss, put together this really impactful study that showed the NHL should be in Nebraska. Not we want you, but should be, and it went really, really well.
I think we also knew that, Gary is known for remaking the NHL. Right, he's been there for 31 years. He's shaken up a lot of things in the NHL. And, what Rod and I, our goal is always to remake how you own and operate real estate. So we thought that, there was a great synergy there.
So the state of Nebraska has almost exactly 2 million people. And if you combined the Omaha and Lincoln combined statistical metropolitan areas, you have a population of almost exactly 1.4 million people in the Omaha and Lincoln CSA. That is on par with Oklahoma City, which has been talked about as an expansion team. And it's bigger than some metro areas like Salt Lake City and Memphis. But it's still a small market. And so when you're talking with the NHL and in this meeting you had yesterday in New York, how do we overcome this handicap, if you will, of being a smaller market, especially if we're competing against a Dallas or Houston that have 5 to 8 million people in them?
I think the answer for that is Just Data. That's our fintech company. That's our fintech ecosystem company that we use to remake Nebraska Crossing. So when we sat down with Gary and the team, that was the first observation they made was, hey, you're the 71st ranked media market. And then we started to walk Gary and the team through how we view the world and how we remake the shopping center industry and how we can remake our size of our market. And so by the end of the meeting, Gary made some really good observations that Johanna will share, but one of them is you guys look and feel through just data like a top 25 media market. And so we overcame that obstacle very early on in the meeting, and I think it was very impactful throughout the rest of the day with us.
Yeah, when we talked about the 2 million people, the consumers that we've acquired into our database through our app, and being able to see that transactional value and see the voids in the market, but also see where people are spending. We don't have NHL here, obviously, pro sports, but we can see where people are spending and going and traveling to that. So we were able to identify over 560,000 people within our database that have an affinity to the NHL. And that includes people who have bought tickets or season tickets, traveled to games, bought merchandise, et cetera. And also youth hockey, right? If they're involved as a parent, observer, et cetera. So that was super powerful. He stopped, asked many questions about that. And then the conclusion was, you guys read as such a bigger market than you are.
Let me make another point that I think really set the tone for the day is, so we pull up in Midtown Manhattan, and Gary Bettman and his executive team came out to the curb and opened our doors and welcomed us to the NHL.
That doesn't happen all the time.
I've never seen that in my life, and it set the whole tone for the day or the meetings, and it was a classy. I mean, the NHL to me is the classiest professional sports organization out there. It was goosebumps, and we didn't expect it, and it was really, really exciting to have that.
Does the lack of other professional sports teams in this area, this region, help the cause?
I think it does. I think that, we don't have the saturation with, all of these teams. But, I think the power for us is our fan base here. We've already proven that we can fill a stadium with 93,000 people. We've already proven that we have the best travel team as far as the Huskers that go all over the nation and go to away games. And I think that, our brand, Nebraska's brand, is really powerful. And it is our fan base.
Yeah, that's a great point, Trenton. I think that works in our favor because most families, most people only have so much sports dollars in their wallet, so to speak. And if you're competing with NBA, MLB, NFL, all these different sports, you're not going to be able to cover all of them. You're not going to be able to watch all of them. And so us not having a professional team, I made it an analogy during my testimony this past week down in Lincoln that the Huskers are kind of our NFL team, the Blue Jays are kind of our NBA team, and that's why this NHL team is a perfect void fit into what our community wants and would like to have as part of our community.
We are talking about big plans, and when we say big, we mean like billions of dollars big at and around Nebraska Crossing in Gretna. We have with us Rod Yates and Johanna Boston are good friends from Nebraska Crossing, as well as the sister company, Just Data. And guys, before we go any further, we talked in the last segment about your trip to New York yesterday to meet with NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman. But this proposed hockey team for Nebraska, what would the name likely be?
Nebraska Night Owls.
And how do you spell night?
K.
With a K. Yes. So Nebraska Night Owls with a K. Where did the name come from?
I think we're just thinking of some names and thought it was pretty cool.
Just threw it out there?
Threw it out there, yeah.
Rod threw it out there. We made hats, and we went from there.
Yeah.
I have seen the logo. I like the preliminary logo. That looks pretty cool.
They did ask us that in the meeting. Do you have a name for it? And so we told them, and they thought that was great, and all of them were writing down notes.
Did you show them the logo?
We didn't. We didn't bring it.
So if this all happens, do you guys envision this being an expansion team, a relocation from another city, or has that even been considered?
Yeah, relocations are always controversial. They're always hot topics for communities. So we certainly didn't go in there with that approach. We want to be the 33rd team. Salt Lake City looks like they have a lot of momentum. There's a guy out there, Ryan Smith. He's a lot like us, entrepreneurial guy, technology guy. He's remade some different aspects of his company he owns. I think he ended up selling it to SAP out of Germany for $7 billion. But Ryan's a really community-minded guy. He's a neighbor of mine up in Park City, Utah, and just super guy for the community. So he's working hard with Gary Bettman about getting the NHL into Salt Lake City. And so I think he's a front runner if they decide to expand. I mean, there's no decision.
When's the last time they had an expansion team?
It's been a while.
Seattle and Vegas?
Yeah. Seattle and Vegas would be the last two. And those have been massively successful. They've done really, really well.
Yeah, and they played well even.
Yeah.
So if we go to Nebraska Crossing right now, there's like a beautiful Nike store, there's Michael Kors, there's Polo, all sorts. But there's not an 18,000-seat arena. So what would have to happen to go from where we are right now to having an 18,000-seat arena where the National Hockey League's Nebraska Night Owls could play?
That's about the size of the arena downtown. That's about the size of CHI Health Center Arena. Is about 18,000 people, I think, for a basketball game.
Yeah, that's right. And so for us, we've got we're going to talk about this more with Coach Cook, but we've got a ton of momentum on signing USA Volleyball, Olympic volleyball training facilities relocating from Anaheim to Nebraska Crossing. And so one of the conditions or requirements in our agreement with the USA Olympic CEO is we got to build an arena. And so our thought was, you could use multi-purpose arena here. It's got to be in that 18,000-seat size. And then that really was the genesis of us thinking more and more of which professional sport do we want to bring to Nebraska and what makes a lot of sense. So that's where we started a lot of momentum with the NHL. So we have a dual-purpose arena there. It's going to take about a year to design it. We are going to build it out of mass timber. It'll be, I think, one of the first mass timber arenas ever built in the world. 18,000 seat, design it for a year, build it for 2 years. What we propose to the NHL, again, there's no active expansion plans today, want to state that. But what we proposed was a 2027 grand opening for the fall season for the NHL, for the Nebraska Night Owls.
Johanna, give us some comments from the NHL commissioner about Omaha and what he saw from your presentation.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just kind of list some of them off. He said we opened his eyes. You've made a compelling case. It's clear that you took a lot of time, on this presentation, and we so are appreciative and we're honored about it. He said it's impressive, almost overwhelmingly so. We were able to show them that we remade Nebraska Crossing into a fintech ecosystem, and taking those, 2 million consumers and being able to, like I said, identify those 560,000 NHL affinities. And he gave us a homework assignment too, also with data with our market. So we're going to work on that. We just basically want to pitch taking just data to the next level and helping the NHL with their data. So that's something that we kind of touched on.
Yeah, we'd all like to think every sports team, whether it's NFL, NBA, or NHL, they all thrive and do really, really well. And so I think if you're a commissioner, you're always looking for new angles, new ideas on how to make all your NHL teams rise and do better. And so I think, to Johanna's point, that comment about I'm overwhelmingly surprised and happy about what I've heard today, I think he viewed Just Data as actually an asset for the NHL, where we could potentially go work with all 32 teams in the NHL and help them create ecosystems around their fan base and their teams, which I think he saw that as very, very powerful. So I'm hopeful not only that we get traction on the expansion team, but also we can go scale our platform across the entire NHL, which would be a massive win for Nebraska, because that's going to require us to create 1,000 fintech jobs in our Good Life district. Would be great.
And so we talk a little bit about the Good Life District, and want to run in a little bit about this before we break for the news. But first of all, congratulations. Your Good Life application, the first one was approved by the Nebraska Department of Economic Development. And we don't have to get into a lot of the weeds of that because some of it's more complicated for a 1-minute answer. But basically, that means that some of the first steps for creating a massive $3 billion mixed-use project are in the works. Can you give us kind of like the 30,000-foot overview of how the Good Life District would make all of this stuff, National Hockey League Arena, expanded Nebraska Crossing, youth sports, and USA Volleyball possible?
Yeah, I mean, Senator Linehan, the state of Nebraska, all of us, the public, and we owe her a tremendous amount of gratitude for taking that bill, carrying that bill, seeing the vision and seeing the opportunity, what it brings to Nebraska. So let me just make a point. So Gary Bettman said hey, Johanna and Rod, what this Good Life District is, it's the future of professional sports. We're not necessarily interested in just building a standalone arena. We want to build arenas where there's food, entertainment, other sports. All this is collaborating together, working together, because we all live in an experiential economy now. And anytime we can take our brand and put it in with other experiences, we're going to do really, really well. So case in point, out in Anaheim, California, the Anaheim Ducks, the NHL team out there, they're doing a $4 billion expansion around their arena where they're doing nothing but bringing residential, other sports venues, other entertainment venues, and they're building them around the arena. So that's what Gary Bettman wants to see. So give credit to Senator Linehan for sort of seeing the same vision that Gary Bettman sees, that's the future, that we're going to build ecosystems. We live in ecosystem economies, and the whole concept of building this around a mass development makes all the sense in the world, because he made a point of that at the end of the meeting. Is that's very, very important to expansion teams to be thinking about big districts like we propose with the Good Life District.
We have with us Rod Yates and Johanna Boston from Nebraska Crossing. We're working on getting Coach John Cook with us. But before we do that, guys, I did want to talk a little bit about the arena and the ownership. And we know it's pretty early, but a couple questions that come to mind, Rod. I know you've got a bunch of partners, and some of them you can say, some of them you can't say. But essentially, who would own the team and who would own the arena? Would the team own the arena, or would some other entity that you create own the arena? How would that all play out?
Yeah, great question, Jeff. So the team would own the arena. It would be part of the Good Life District and the incentives we're using to build out different aspects of the development. Ownership-wise, I think there'll be a couple Super Bowl NFL quarterbacks involved that are affiliated with the Good Life District.
A couple?
Couple of them. Drew Brees, as you guys all know, has been on your show, and he's really, really adamant about bringing the NHL into Nebraska, and that's a really a thing he wants to see happen sooner than later. So we got some other guys affiliated with us. By the way, we're working with Tom Brady to be the celebrity guest for Coach Osborne's Teammates Gala in November. So it'll be fun to have Mr. Brady in town. But yeah, the ownership, to me, it just screams local ownership, that the primary owners are going to be the people in the community that have always had a passion for hockey, professional sports, and that. I think that's how we'll drive it, is we'll have it all locally owned. And then with a few folks from the NFL Super Bowl quarterbacks.
Just a ballpark, what would a 18,000 seat arena cost?
Yeah, it's gonna be $1 billion. We talked to Mr. Bettman about that yesterday. Now, the good news is we're not building in downtown Manhattan or some of the big metropolitan areas, so our costs will be a little less. But yeah, we put a budget together of $1 billion to build it.
Let's talk a little bit about USA Volleyball. That's further along in the process, whereas the NHL is kind of early. You guys have been talking with USA Volleyball for some time, currently headquartered in Anaheim, California. And give us an update with that. When I interviewed you for our Grow Omaha newsletter Big Story earlier this week, Rod, you said that that negotiations with USA Volleyball to move their headquarters here are coming along nicely. Tell us about that and what the facility would be like. Yeah,
so last year when the Good Life District passed, Senator Linehan and Governor Pillen signed it into law, I think on June 2nd or June 1st. And my first call was to John Cook. And I said, John, we've got this iconic development that's going to happen. We need to do iconic things and attract different industry and uses into the district. And I said, John, who do we call it USA Olympic Volleyball? Of course, John knows everybody. His Rolodex is phenomenal. And he introduced me to the CEO. And we just started a dialogue that, hey, we're doing this iconic development that's going to be game-changing for the Midwest and the state of Nebraska. We'd love to relocate you from Anaheim. And the thought is that, there's an appetite to relo. Anaheim's an expensive place to live. Facilities aren't best of class. And so we had the CEO and his team fly in, and we spent a couple days with them in Nebraska, showing them around, meeting Coach Cook, and spending some time together. And then on August 30th, we did something really special. We had all the Olympian athletes fly in for that volleyball match down in Memorial Stadium.
Nice.
Where we had 90,000 plus folks. So they all came in and had a great time. And I think the athletes were phenomenal because they're all going to relocate here. We're going to have 100 Olympian athletes relocate with us. And then we're going to move all their corporate people here. We'll have about 60 to 70 corporate people. But to answer your question, Jeff, directly, sorry for the long-winded, but when I leave here today, I'm with my attorney and we're finishing the final documents that we need to put together for USA Olympic.
And with that, we have Husker volleyball coach John Cook on the line. Good morning, Coach, and welcome to Grow Omaha.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, thank you for calling in. We have just a couple minutes, and I would love to ask you just kind of a broad question. Just why should USA Volleyball relocate to Gretna, Nebraska, within a half hour's drive of Husker Volleyball headquarters?
Well, they kind of have through their whole time, they've kind of been nomads. And when I say that, that they originally had the training center in Colorado Springs, one of the Olympic training centers, but nobody liked going there, and the altitude affected them, especially the men with how because the ball flight and so on was different at high altitude, and they really never play at high altitude. So they moved to Anaheim. But the gym is a warehouse, basically, that they threw courts in there. I've been in practices and so on there where, the court next to them is 70-year-olds playing pickup volleyball, and then there's karate kids going, and there's a basketball court going. So it's not really a training center or anything like an NFL team or NBA team would have, and that's what those guys deserve. And then the Anaheim part is very expensive to live there. There's really no housing right there for any of the other teams that come in. You got to remember, USA Volleyball is not only just our national team; it's the U21 team, the U19 team, youth teams, men and women, beach. So they've just been scattered, and a good life could give them an unbelievable home base in the middle of the country and affordable housing. And the fact that I think Omaha now is going to start offering international flights with the new development there just makes it easy for them. Because remember, every flight they take is pretty much an international flight.
Okay, so Coach, could you give us a little bit of an overview of your involvement in this process so far?
Well, I've been involved, and my assistant coaches and, of course, our players have been involved with different parts of USA Volleyball for a long time. I actually coached in the Barcelona Olympics with the USA men. So I've been very integrated in the USA program and with the leadership there. And when this opportunity, and of course, their head coach, Karch, and John Spara, who's the men's head coach, known those guys forever. We talk all the time. I go out and visit, watch practices. But bottom line is, when this opportunity came up, and the fact that we believe that in this country, Nebraska is the center or the hotbed or, whatever you want to call it, of volleyball in this country. And we've proven it over and over and over. And the fact that this opportunity came up, and when I saw the drawings and I talked to Rod about it, and I'm like, I got Karch out here right away. I talked to some of the administrators and said, you guys have got to come in and look at this. It could be a dream come true for USA Volleyball, something that they've never, ever really had as a program.
Hey, Coach, this is Johanna here. A quick question. So tell us a little bit about how it helps your program, how it helps youth and the growth that you've already obviously impacted so incredibly with the success of your program. But tell us a little bit about how that helps the feeder teams and what it does for not only Nebraska, but the surrounding areas that are interested in volleyball.
Yeah, first of all, I think being in the center of the country in Nebraska is going to be great for more exposure for volleyball in the state and in the Midwest. And you guys have to remember 25 years ago when I kind of got into this, volleyball was a West Coast sport, or it was Hawaii. And, the South and the East were just kind of non-existent. And they would try to have Final Fours on the East Coast. And I remember my first one was in Richmond, Virginia, and they had to bus kids in to get a big crowd. Then they go to Omaha and they sell it out. And, we hold every attendance record there is now in Final Fours and regular season matches, and it's all happened here. So it'll just continue to bring great exposure. Of course, you look at the pro volleyball team right now, which could be involved in some of this. Omaha's leading the pro volleyball league in attendance. And Omaha Lincoln is an easy place in the middle of the country to get to have conventions and clinics and all those things. So this could really be the heartbeat of volleyball in this country, and it would be great for Nebraska. And volleyball is growing, as we know. It's and again, our stadium match was the proof.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you calling in for a few minutes and appreciate everything you've done to work on this effort, and wish you continued success.
Yeah, and I just want to say, this project, we talk about dreaming big and dreaming bigger in Nebraska, and that's what we've done with Nebraska volleyball. And to me, this is the ultimate dream big for the state of Nebraska.
Thanks, Coach. Now we have a couple of other things we want to ask Rod and Johanna real fast. You had the meeting with the NHL commissioner yesterday, working on USA Volleyball. They're still talking about some amendments to the Good Life District and the Unicam right now. Guys, what comes next?
Yeah, I think we get the amendment signed off here this spring, and then we can start finishing up our land assemblies project and start site work. My goal is just see a lot of site work happening this summer and fall. So there's a lot of good things in the works here, and we just got a few things to finish up.
So, guys, I want to ask you one thing about that meeting yesterday with the hockey commissioner, Gary Bettman. Governor Pillen was part of the delegation. So how's the gov when it comes to pitching Nebraska for big blockbuster projects like this?
Well, Johanna and I, that's a really good question, Jeff. Johanna and I never done like a pitch like this before with the governor. We obviously interact a lot with him, but the thing I noticed is he's a marketing machine for Nebraska, and to watch his interaction with Commissioner Gary Bettman, it was world class. I mean, this is a guy selling his heart and soul for Nebraska on why the NHL should be here. And one of the really cool points that the governor made is he asked Gary Bettman, why do you think the Big Ten is in Nebraska, right? I mean, they're in these big markets, big cities, big states, and very effective point he made to Gary Bettman was, it's because of our brand. And Gary kind of paused and he thought, well, your brand? He said, yeah, our brand is our fan base. We have the world's best fan base in Nebraska, and that is really, really powerful for the NHL to be part of our brand here in Nebraska. And I just thought that was just really, really spot on and very impactful with Gary Bettman.
Yeah, he just said, we have great people and it's a great life.
So we're almost out of time, but it's not just all of this NHL and world-class Olympic volleyball stuff. We also have some retail and entertainment expansions planned for Nebraska Crossing. Quickly, how's that coming along, and what hotels might we expect?
Yeah, we have great hotels coming. So one of the things we wanted to bring was 3 resort hotels. We're really close to getting our Margaritaville resort done, because if we're going to do all this destination retail and sports and entertainment, we want to make a comfortable environment for people to come and stay for 3, 4, 5 nights. And so we have 3 resorts we're bringing in, Margaritaville being the first one. Then we've got a world-class set of retail. One of the things one of the senators asked me in session last year was the food scene. And so we went down to Kansas City and we grabbed the top 10 restaurants out of Kansas City, because I love the Kansas City food scene, and we're going to bring them and build them into the district. So you're going to see a lot of new-to-market retail, a lot of restaurant, a lot of sports, a lot of hospitality, and it's going to be really phenomenal.
And with that, the music's playing. Guys, thanks for joining us. Rod Yates, Johanna Boston, Nebraska Crossing, perhaps future NHL hockey owners. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you, guys, as always.
If you like this video, be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. And remember, Grow Omaha is not just media. This is a mission. We are trying to build up Omaha and make it an even better place. We can only do that with your help. Share this video with your friends, neighbors, and family.